Thank you very much. Please sit down. It's really great to see everybody on this beautiful day in Washington, D.C. Some people say the swamp, but I'll not say that today. I refuse. This is too important what we're doing. One of the most important trade deals we've ever made by far. I want to thank Senator Joni Ernst for being here. Joni, thank you very much of Iowa, and I'll be there very soon. We'll be doing something very important in Iowa. But this is maybe more than all of it put together, right, Joni? So I want to thank you for being here, Congressman Holding, Congressman Rowe, Congressman Newhouse, and Congressman Meadows. Thank you all for being here. We much appreciate it. You've been very instrumental. Thank you. I'm thrilled to speak to the American people to share truly historic news for our nation, and indeed for the world. I want to thank Vice President Pence for joining us this morning. It's my great honor to announce that we have successfully completed negotiations in brand new deal to terminate and replace NAFTA and NAFTA trade agreements with an incredible new US-Mexico-Canada agreement called USMCA. Sort of just works. MCM. USMCA. That'll be the name. I guess that 99% of the time we'll be here in USMCA. Has a good ring to it. I have long contended that NAFTA was perhaps the rawest trade deal ever made. Since NAFTA's adoption, the United States racked up trade deficits totaling more than $2 trillion, and it's a much higher number than that, with Canada and Mexico at lost vast amounts of money and lost 4.1 million manufacturing jobs, and 1 in 4 auto jobs lost. About 25% of our auto jobs, even more than that. Throughout the campaign I promised to renegotiate NAFTA, and today we have kept that promise. But for 25 years as a civilian, as a businessman, I used to say, how could anybody have signed a deal like NAFTA? And I watched New England, and so many other places, where I was just, the factories were leaving, the jobs were leaving, people being fired, and we can't have that. So we have negotiated this new agreement based on the principle of fairness and reciprocity. To me it's the most important word, and trade, because we've been treated so unfairly by so many nations all over the world that we're changing that. We just signed a much better deal. With South Korea we had horrible deal, and we just signed that at the United Nations, and that's worked out well, and they're happy, we're happy. It's good for jobs, good for a lot of things. When that deal was signed, they said 250,000 jobs will be given by signing this transaction, and they were right. I've said it before, they were right. 250,000 jobs to South Korea, not to the United States. So that's changed, and very much for the better, and this one is a brand new deal. The agreement will govern nearly $1.2 trillion trade, which makes it the biggest trade deal in the United States history. I want to congratulate U.S. Trade Representative Bob Lighthizer, who is worked. Nobody understands how hard he's. Well, thank you, Bob. No matter when you called him, he was in the office, or he was in somebody else's office doing the same thing. Bob Lighthizer is great. I've heard it for years. I said, if I ever do this, I want to GRT Lighthizer to represent us, because he felt the way I did, and the entire team at the Euster standing behind me, and some right here in the audience. I want to thank all. Peter Navro and everybody. Fantastic group of people. They love our country. I want to thank Secretary Mnuchin, Secretary Ross, Secretary Nelson, Secretary Perdue, Jared Kushner, Peter Navarro, and the United States Ambassador to Canada, Kelly Craft. Thank you, Kelly. Also, I want to thank President Peña Nieto of Mexico, who we had a few disagreements, but I really like him a lot. I think you may like me, I'm not sure, but I think he's a terrific person, and he'll be leaving soon, but he's really done a good job, and a wonderful person. and the Mexican President-elect López Obrador, who has given his support to this agreement. And we're developing a really good relationship, which I think is very important for country, frankly, and for Mexico. And so they worked together on this. Was done by both. I said, look, I don't want to sign an agreement, and then when a new president comes in they don't like it and we have difficulty. They worked very much together on it, and I appreciate it from both. They hit by giant tsunami like the people have not seen. This part of the world hasn't seen it so much. Fortunately, they said that's the worst of all. You look at the tornadoes, the hurricane, you look at all of the different natural disasters. Friend of mine who studies natural disasters, I don't know why he does that, but he does. He says the tsunami is worst of all, and they got hit very hard, and probably thousands of people killed. We have already sent a lot of first responders and military and others to help, but it's a really bad situation. And finally, before closing, I want to send our thoughts and prayers to the victims of the Las Vegas shooting. That was a horrible time in our country. Took place exactly 1 year ago today. All of America is grieving for the lives lost and for the families they left behind. So to all those families and to the people of Las Vegas, we love you, we are with you, we're working with you very hard. I was a terrible event, so thank you very much for that. I want to ask Bob Whitehoeser, who is just a terrific individual as well as a man that knows a lot about this subject, to come up and say a word about the USMCA, the agreement. And if you have any questions, we'll take some questions after that. Please, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I start, I would just like give a vignette, because I think it says something about working for the president. So August 16th of last year we started this process, and I'm at a hotel in Washington, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people waiting to have the introduction of myself and my two counterparts from Canada, one for the United States, and them we're lined up, and I get a call that says the president wants to talk to you. So I go in the little room, I get the call, phone the president. Starts talking and everybody's kind of waiting, and he's talking and he going through what he wants to get done in NAFTA and his problems with it, all of which he quite familiar with. And then he finally says two things which I thought were telling. One is he said, Bob, I will back you up like no other rooster has backed up in history. And then the second that he did that, by the way. And then the second thing he said was, he said, now go out there and have fun. I thought, well, it's probably not going to be as much fun from my size. Finally, I would like to thank President Garrett. Your leadership, vision, and grit made this agreement possible. No other person could have done it. Millions of Americans to benefit for years to come because of this vision. And probably even more important, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you very much. Some questions? Yes, Steve.
Thank you, sir. You've had Tennyson's with Prime Minister Thuda.
Yes.
How did that affect your ability to get this deal done?
I don't think it did. He's a professional, I'm a professional. We had very strong tensions. It was just an unfair deal, whether it was Mexico or Canada. And now it's a fair for everybody. It's a much different deal. It's a brand new deal. It's not NAFTA redone. It's a brand new deal. I just spoke with him. We have a great relationship, but we're gonna work as partner. Don't forget the rest of the world is looking to take advantage of us. And as region, you might say, and we're going to work very closely together with Canada and Mexico, because we'll be able to compete with anybody. We have things that nobody else says. We have energy that nobody else has. We have timber that nobody else has. We have things that no other part of the world has to the extent that we have. So we're going to do very well together. I think there was a lot of Tennyson, I will say, between he and I think more specifically, and it's worked out. You know what, it ended about 12 o'clock last night. And you mentioned me, but he's a good man. He's done good job. He loves the people of Canada.
You mentioned the $267 billion impossible more tariffs on China. What does need to do to avoid that? Well,
we'll see what happens with China. We have lost $375 billion in trade deficits. They have a surplus of $375 billion with a beef with the United States. And it's been that way for years and years and years. I always say we rebuilt China. They took that money and they built fighter jets. And they built bridges. They built more bridges than we built in the last 100 years. Probably big one like the George Washington like big bridges, and I'm not gonna take you no took. I don't blame China, I blame our leadership. They should never let that happen. And I told that to President Xi. I said, you know, I was making a speech in China, and I was really hitting China hard. And China, I don't know if that's a good thing to do. We got run of time. We can have one more question before we finished. Yes, go ahead.
I have a second question on Kavanaugh thing when you get back to it. If you'll take that go or you'll take that now.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, the question I have for you. On trade, the question I have on trade. Does this mean the end of tariffs, if you could spell that out?
No, the steel is staying where it is ad lumem, but it means we probably for the most part won't be leaving to use tariffs unless we're unable to make a deal with the country. For instance, if we can't make a deal with the European Union, we will respectfully put tariffs on the cars the United States will take in billions and billions of dollars into its coffers. Isn't that nice? Because you don't hear that.
Carl Sagan.
Okay, yes, Sagan, but I'll take in billions and billions of dollars. But really what's gonna happen is they'll make the cars in the United States. Thank you very much for all your questions, and I hope you had a wonderful day. And I'll see you in Johnson City for rally at 6 p.m. See you there.